I'm here with Maxine Boag, who is a Napier City Councillor. Kia ora, Maxine, and thanks for joining me.
Kia ora, Andrew. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it's quite a busy time to be a councillor at the moment. No matter what council you're on, you've had quite a bit going on. You've just come through your long-term plan. Do you just want to give me a little bit of a sense of how you feel the process went? And it's always tough when you've got such a large rate increase to give the ratepayers. Tell us what your thoughts on the process were.
Well, it was quite a detailed process, and we did get a lot of submissions, and we had hearings, and yeah, we heard, people were really worried about the rates increase, and I can completely understand that. There were some major issues that touched on my portfolio, such as the council housing.
Yes.
And although, it would have been lovely to have been able to retain the 377 of our council flats, we had tried doing that in the last long-term plan, but it was dependent on raising the rents in order to meet the deficit, raising the rents and having a 2% rates increase last year. Well, Cyclone Gabrielle interfered with the rates increase, and we just felt that we had really tried to retain all our flats. And so we came to a compromise, which I agreed to, even though, my heart goes out to housing is a big issue here in Napier. But we made a real commitment to retain over 300, which is still a large portfolio, 9 out of our 12 villages, with the focus solely on pensioner housing, subsidised pensioner housing. So we are committed to divesting 3 of the villages that were more focused on social housing. And yeah, so that was a biggie for me. Because it's something that I was very concerned about, and I still think, in a way, I'm quite proud of the fact that we have still such a large portfolio left. It's a lot more than most cities. I mean, we are the second biggest social housing provider in the city after Kaingaora. So that was a good, it was a fair compromise, really, for me.
Yeah, because you say it is an
What
issue.
else was there?
It,
Yeah.
you say it is an issue, housing, and that. What is the solution? Is this a central government problem that needs to be solved, or how do you see?
Well, how much time have we got? I feel I'm quite hot under the collar, actually, about what's happening at the moment with
Yeah.
Kaingaora and social housing. We have a real crisis here in Napier, and there was a commitment from Kaingaora, which was, the main social housing provider, to provide 400 new builds over the next few years, should we have retained the same government. However, there was a very damning report written about Kaingaora, and a lot of their funding has been withdrawn or held back.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, what they're telling me is they can only more or less guarantee that they will be providing 160 new builds, because their deadline now for their funding is they've got to get everything done by the end of June next year. So they're really in a tight spot. But it's really quite distressing, because it seems this government doesn't have the same commitment to social housing. I know they're giving money and trying to build up the community housing providers,
Yeah.
but all I've heard them say is that they will be providing 1,500 social houses within 2 years. Whereas what I understand from the previous government, they did 14 to 15,000 in the last 6 years, 5,000 over the last 12 months, 13 homes a day. And we so desperately need those homes. I mean, there was a report came out earlier this week about the causal link between poverty, housing poverty, and family violence, basically. We
Yeah.
all know that housing is the basis of well-being, really. And while we have people living in motels, we have well over 100 people homeless in Napier, living on the street, living in tents, families living in cars. We so desperately need those social houses, and it's been very disappointing to see this government just withdrawing from that commitment. And in Marae Nui, there was a huge cut of, there was over 100 houses, state houses, demolished in 2011, I think, and there were all sorts of promises. Those spaces have been empty since then, up until the last couple of years with this government, and they had intended filling all the green spaces, but that's not going to happen now. Unless there's a huge rush of builds from community housing providers. So it is a worry.
Yeah. So you've seen that issue of homeless people, of people living in poverty, and that, and now the rates increases. I know you did come to some sort of compromise on the rates finally, but still, it's the largest increase that your council, I think, has ever given out. What are you seeing on the ground there from people? How they, with the cost of living crisis, how they're coping with this?
They're not coping very well. This is what I hear from my grey power connections.
Yes.
People aren't approaching me so much, but I know the grey power executive have had, people come up to them just really worried about how they're going to cope. The combination of the cost of living crisis, insurance increases, and insurance is outrageous, and the rates increase, which affect some people, more than others. But I did speak out about that when we were debating our long-term plan, short-term plan. It was only 3 years. The issue is also we have quite a big significant infrastructure projects plan for the next 10 years. And these are necessities, the things that we need to catch up on. But, what's really sad is when we reduced, before we actually got to actually present the draft plan, we had started out with a 40% rates increase, and we just went through as much as we possibly could and deleted it until it went down to 24.7, which was further reduced after submissions to 19.9. It's like the $19.99, which really is 20. But unfortunately, what that's meant is we have reduced our staff full-time equivalent, and they are, they've borne the brunt of it really in a way, that in the resilience rate that we set. But I just don't know where else we could have done it. And, there's things, some of the issues were that we'd raised the fees and charges for many of our services, and such as, the ocean spa. People were really upset about that. On the one hand, they're very upset about the rates increase. On the other hand, they were upset at us trying to, claw back some of the costs that translated into rates increases by charging more for some of our services and trying to make them self-sufficient over the next 3 years. That was Kennedy Park, the War Memorial, and also Ocean Spa. So so it is really hard times for people, and homelessness, lack of housing, and there's a lot of things that there are a lot of people, as you know, that are really struggling and are going to continue to struggle.
Now, you mentioned infrastructure, and there has been an admission from the council that it's basically neglect through the years, that you didn't keep up with your infrastructure, that has resulted in the huge costs. Now, you've been on the council for quite a while. What happened in those years? Why do you think there wasn't any attention paid?
Well, we had the study done, and I don't know when it was. I've been on council since 2007, the WAUGH report, WAUGH, when Wayne Jack was the chief executive, and we were assured that our infrastructure was in good condition. But I guess there's also the extra demands of climate change and the rain bombs and Cyclone Cook and all those unusual but increasingly usual weather events, which have really put extra strain on all our infrastructure and made us look a lot harder at our capabilities in dealing with these and supposed to be, once in 500 years that are happening once every 5 years or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
So that would be partly it. But, the problem is with a 3-year election cycle, councils do tend to focus on what's visible, what's above ground,
Yeah.
buildings and services, those sorts of things, without making a top priority the pipes and pumps that are under the ground and aren't quite so sexy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, one proposal that your mayor and the council is also looking into is CCTOs, council-controlled trade organizations. How do you feel about this? Because there is some concern that it takes democracy out of the process and removes the ratepayer from having sort of a voice on what's happening within council affairs, if you like.
I guess it's only, I appreciate that, and we have had a couple of workshops, and I think at least one of them have been public, so people can actually see the process we're going through at the moment. I wasn't a great fan of it at the beginning because what people were saying is, okay, staff should be doing this kind of looking at our portfolio of different assets and such as parklands and dealing with it in their own workspace. But with I just felt that it would be good to get some professionals on that job and people who really knew what they were doing and whose task was to make money out of those assets. Rather than leave it to staff. It's not that the staff aren't capable, but as I said, we have cut some of our FTEs, and this would be an extra job that we haven't actually budgeted for in a way.
Yeah.
So I'm quite comfortable with what we're doing actually, because I think this is a job for people who really know what they're doing. And as I say, the process we're going through at the moment, apart from the last workshop, which actually specifically dealt with, like commercially sensitive issues on those assets, it's all out there in the open, and I think I hope people will have a look at that and see what we're trying to do to make it more democratic and so that we will know also what's going on. I don't have any sort of conspiracy theories about how this is going to be done. I think it will be people who know what they're doing and people of integrity.
An issue that's at the forefront of Napier City Council at the moment is Marty Wards, because the government has decided that councils are going to have to go back and hold referendum, or they can scrap the Marty Wards. Your council had consulted quite heavily and then decided to go ahead with it. But now you are going back and having, from what I can tell, a sort of almost once over lightly consultation. Talk me through how you feel about the government's move and the importance of Marty Wards.
Well, I think it's unfortunate, even ridiculous, what the government is asking us to do, because we did go through an intensive process. I personally had wanted us to, push through and get them in 2022, but the mayor was really quite strong on making us wider process of consultation. This is in 2021, as we could, and we did do that. And we had, I think, 2 days of hearings. We got hundreds of submissions, and our decision was based on that. So to have to go back now, it just undermines the whole democratic process that we went through and our decision. We have made all sorts of decisions about wards. When I came on to council the year before that, council was all elected at large. There were no wards. Council decided about wards. So it just undermines our own local input, professional input as councils, because this is the only ward decision that we have to put in front of a referendum. I mean, the last time we had a referendum, of course, was in 2015 when we were voting on amalgamation.
Yes,
I've still got my say no to amalgamation bumper sticker. So the process we're going through at the moment is, because we made that decision, but we don't have Māori wards at the moment, is we've decided to consult. But yeah, once over lightly, there's not going to be hearings, but we do stand by the decision that was made, but we want to hear what people have to say now.
Yeah.
And so the process started today. People can go to our Say It page on the council website and tell us what they think. We're holding a few opportunities for people to speak to us about it. There's a meeting, Huia Iwi actually, which is run by Mana Ahuriri on Monday night. Okay. Tuesday afternoon, we have a drop in, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, so we have, partly because, I mean, yesterday we finished off consultation for our representation review, which is a whole other.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that, yeah. Yes,
so then we have to make a decision. It's all such a terribly short time frame, but you know, we're supposed to be listening to the public. I can't be too strident on my views on Māori wards, but I more or less stand on how I felt about it before. I think it is important for us to work in partnership, particularly since iwi and mana whenua are such strong economic powerhouses and so much part of our city that and really it's not any different from the way things run at central government. People on the Mori roll vote for their candidates, etc., etc. It's not co-governance.
No.
But anyway, I did not sound too over committed one way or the other, because we do want to hear what people say.
Talking of that review, the council review, why do you think it's important? I know you have to do it every few years and that, but how is this process going and why is this important?
Well, it was partly, it's supposed to be done every 6 years or even every 3 years. And it was particularly important because we had to incorporate, because of the decision we made in 2022, Māori wards.
Yeah.
So we had to then, we were changing our ward system. So there were a few options in front of us, just tack on 2 Māori wards on top of the status quo. It wouldn't have been exactly the same as it is now with our 4 wards, because one ward, the ward that I represent, has a significant number of people on the Māori electoral roll, so the numbers changed. Yeah. But the decision that council's preference was for 3 wards plus the Māori ward, which is citywide, rather than 4 wards. So that's what we went out with, and we be interested to hear what people have to say. Okay, we did look at, did people want to go back to at large, and there was a definite no there. Yeah. There were other issues like, did we want a community board in Marae Nui? And although people in Marae Nui, most of them thought it was a good idea, a lot of others didn't like the idea. So yeah, so we went out with what was the preferred council's preference, and we will be hearing and deciding. There is going to be a hearing. I don't know how many people want to speak to us about it, but that's going to be in a couple of weeks, and then we make a decision about this ward system. Now, if we have to also vote again on whether we want to stick with or rescind, this is separately, the decision we made on Māori wards. So prior to, no, after then. So if we decide as a council we want to rescind our decision on Māori wards, then we will have to either just stick with the status quo as it is now, or go back out with another model. We'll have about 2 or 3 weeks to do that before the deadline. It's all very crazy and mixed up.
But reading the council, I think it would be unlikely if you did rescind your decision on Māori wards.
I think, one thing that the governance team was telling us, that 24% of Napier's population is Maori. Now, they're not all necessarily of voting age, but 24%. And ever since Napier has been a borough or a city or a county or whatever, there have only been 3 councillors who have identified as Māori, and that's just really been in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So, hopefully that will be taken into consideration when people make their submissions as well.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the dreaded word amalgamation, but it is tough times for councils. Do you think there is anything more that the Hawke's Bay councils can do to share services? I know there's already some going on, but do you think there are more opportunities?
There probably are. There's quite a bit being done now. To be honest, I haven't really looked into that, but I'm from Hastings. I'm a Hastings girl kind of thing, and here I am a Napier councillor. And although I spoke out very strongly, against amalgamation, there are some real discrepancies because of our current structure. Although, in a way, when I think of what happened in Cyclone Gabriel and how hard Hastings was hit in areas very close to our boundaries, such as Waioheke, Tangoio, Petani, those, the Esk Valley, those areas that the Napier, the Hastings District Council we have worked with them. I think there will be a move at some stage, that will just come out of necessity, I guess. But whether it will be within the next foreseeable future, it hasn't actually been on our agenda. And there hasn't been a push from our population. I don't know about Hastings, but it just makes sense for us to work as closely as we can together. It just is crazy not to, really.
Any other issues that you're concerned about in Napier?
Not really. I have talked about the homelessness. So I just want to say a few positive things about Maraenui, which is very much the heart of the ward I represent and is quite a special part of Napier. It's the area with the highest levels of deprivation, the highest number of Māori in Pacific, etc., etc. But it is so strong in many ways. And what I like about Maraenui, I always call it it's our city's nursery because it has a large population of under 15s. But and I'm very active in Maraenui. I'm the secretary of a trust there, and we meet monthly and catch up with what's going on. But I sort of made a list of some of the good things that have happened just in the last couple of years. We've got a really cool in the shopping centre. We've got a half court or basketball court that council put in that's busy every day. We've got a container full of gear for a free exercise program that twice a day. This backyard motivation's been very, very successful. EIT there is really pumping with all sorts of community-based courses from knitting and sewing to yoga to exercise programs. We have a koha shed, free in, free out, which is open twice a week. It's quite unique. No money changes hands, and it's very well run. And they do have marakai. They have about 5 raised community garden beds. We have a Pākeke group run by Age Concern once a week, a free drop-in clinic at the Ropa Iwi Trust, a newly opened hub for rangatahi services, Shamrock Boxing, which you may or may not have heard about, which is an amazing initiative, and the Kaioha food delivery, Mary Mohawk, who goes out daily and delivers food she goes to the homeless centre as well as to individuals who can't get to Nourish Fennell, which is only open twice a week. So there's some really good things happening there. Also, we're getting, not quite in Maraenui, but Orange Sky is coming with a laundry service to Napier and Hastings within the next week. So they'll be providing free laundry services for needy people, needy families. They also have a free shower, which we haven't got yet, but that will be good when we get that as well. So there are lots of positive sort of community driven initiatives, and I know mostly of course about Maraenui because I spend so much time there.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we're so well connected there now. So, yeah, there's some
Now,
positives.
as for the future for you, do you see another term in yourself?
Well, every time I say I'm not going to run again, and I'm saying that now, and perhaps a little bit louder than before. I mean, I am in my mid-70s,
Wow.
and yeah, and I mean, I love my job, and I keep fit and healthy. Perhaps it's time to hand over to the younger generation, but I do really enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm sure that whether I run again or not, I do want to keep active outside the tent as I have been inside the tent, because I think a lot of those connections that I've built over the years have been very important to me, and I like to think I've been able to make a bit of a difference, and that I would, if I don't run again next year, that I'll still be able to continue some form of service, because, as you know, it's very satisfying and fulfilling,
Yeah,
as personally.
absolutely. Well, Maxine Boag, thank you so much for your time. It's been great chatting to you, and all the best in the future, whether you run again or not. All the best.
Okay, really appreciate the time. Thank you, Andrew.